Welcome everyone. This is the final video in my 60 paintings in 30 days challenge, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited that I have finished this challenge. I feel super accomplished, and I'm really excited to move on to some other things, and I'm sure that a lot of you are excited to move on to other things as well. I know this was kind of a one-sided conversation sometimes. Just basically me painting and not a lot else. But I'm excited to move on to some other things. This challenge was very challenging in many ways. I think I bit off, obviously not more than I could chew because I finished it, but it was a lot. And when I first started, I was like, oh, 2 per day, that's not a big deal. It's not, but considering that I also said that I was going to record these and then record voiceovers for them and then, produce those videos and upload them and promote them on social media. And I probably spent more time making and putting the videos out than I actually spent painting. But it was a really, really good challenge to get me moving again. I think over the last year, I really got out of my habit of daily painting. I used to paint every single day. And, over the last year or so, sometimes I would go for a couple weeks to a month or two without painting at all. And part of that was, the vast majority of it was just stress and, anxiety kind of brought on by the pandemic and the state of the world and everything. So this was really kind of a kick in the pants for me to say, it's time to get back to it. It's time to get back into the habit. It's time to get moving again. The saying, bodies in motion tend to stay in motion, and the same goes for others. The bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. So I had to get back into motion. And this was the perfect way for me to do that. So I appreciate you indulging me while I did this. No, this is not what we're going to do going forward. It's just you watching me paint, I promise. We are going to get back to some actual tutorials. Like I have said, it will look a little bit different. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I know that it won't be the same as it was in the past because I've grown and changed, and I'm a different person. I'm a different artist. I think about things different. I approach things different, so I can't do things same old, same old. One interesting thing that happened to me during this challenge was, one thing that I noticed happen once I finished the challenge, and it actually just kind of hit me this morning. I thought, well, I don't have to do those paintings anymore. Good. And then I thought, yeah, but now I'm in the habit of it, and I want to keep doing them. So that was an interesting thing. I've kind of built a habit around, making painting a priority. And so I very well may continue doing some of these. And that's exciting because I won't be doing them with pressure like I've been doing them over the last month. I won't have the pressure to, gotta get 60 of them out by this date. So it'll be fun now. I'll be able to just kind of relax and enjoy them. So maybe from time to time, you may still see a video where I'm just kind of giving you some little inspiration talks while you watch a watercolor being made. So just kind of like an art vlog type thing, but we'll see. I'm not going to promise that because I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just open to whatever happens. But that's just an idea that I had today. But after I get these videos out to you, I am so looking forward to getting back into the swing of things, creating, teaching content for you. So some of the things that I learned during this challenge, because that was the whole point of it, right? It was to get me moving again and to kind of build skills. And skills, that's kind of a broad range of things. Skills is not necessarily painting skills only. It's also about time management and about, creating a habit and creating a process. So I definitely learned a lot about using watercolor. I see a big difference in my paintings, but also in my skills and my confidence and what I know about my paints and what I know about the way watercolor works. In the last 30 days, that has really, really expanded, and I feel a lot more confident than I did before. And so I think, if you have a medium or just a skill or something that you really want to improve on, make yourself some kind of a challenge. I know 60 and 30 is a lot, and not everyone can commit to that. I'm lucky that painting happens to be my job, so painting 60 paintings in 30 days doesn't conflict with my job. It's part of my job, but not everybody has that luxury. So really find something within a goal that's within reach, and sit down and define that goal. What is it that you want to learn? What kind of time frame? Give yourself a time frame. A time frame is super important. If you just say, I'm only going to paint watercolor from now on and see what I can learn, one day you're not going to be feeling it, and you're going to wish that you hadn't made that goal, and you're going to want to do something else, and then you might feel like you failed your goal, or whatever. So it's really important that you make yourself a time frame, whether it's a week, a year, a month, 12 hours, whatever it is. Say, for this specific amount of time, this is the only thing I'm going to do. And here's why, and here's what I hope to gain from it. And here are the parameters that I'm going to create in. It was really tempting for me to pull out some larger paper here and there, but that was outside of the parameters that I'd set for myself for the goal. And I told myself, okay, get through this challenge, and then you can reward yourself by painting on some larger paper and kind of doing some of these other things that you really want to do. So kind of like the figures in the last video, these ones I tried really hard to do them as quickly as possible. I didn't want to spend 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, on these little tiny paintings. I just really wanted to get them out and have them be expressive, have them kind of be a capture of that moment, of the way that I was feeling or whatever it was I was thinking in that moment. Just kind of a snapshot rather than a labor. Like the purple one was for the first painting in the last video. It was a laborious process. These were all very quick, and I just let them be super expressive, and I enjoyed these ones so much more. So going forward from here, now that I'm done with this challenge, I can actually put attention into other things. I've been promising you I was going to make a super beginner a super beginner watercolor video for you, and I am going to get started on that right now, and I'm really excited about that. The point of view of that video is going to be basically watercolor for acrylic artists, so people who have kind of built their skills on acrylic paint and don't really understand the differences between watercolor and acrylic. That's kind of the viewpoint that I'm going to take on this video. So hopefully that's really helpful for you. Going forward from there, we'll probably do, a couple of watercolor tutorials, maybe an acrylic here and there. We'll see what happens. I'm not going off of acrylic. I'm just bringing in other things. But I would also like to turn my attention, like I've already mentioned, to some oil and really share what I've learned in oil over the last several months with you guys. And I think the oil is a much easier medium for acrylic artists to kind of wrap their mind around. But yeah, we'll do some oil and we'll just kind of do whatever the mood calls for in the moment. So who knows? One day it might be watercolor, the next day acrylic, next day oil. I was really trying to work with or experiment with placement, especially in these next three, this one and the next two. So rather than saying, here my horizon is at the lower 25% of the paper and then everything is up above it, these I wanted to kind of bring the horizon up a little higher, have the ground have a little bit more personality in it, a little bit more movement and different elevations. And so that's why we've got this ground that's a little sideways. But it doesn't mean that I was coming at it with an idea. Like I was telling you in the last video, it's about responding, not reacting. And so I just kind of put it on there very loosely without saying, here's a ground just down here. And then however it turned out is how it turned out. I had no idea what the ground was going to look like on this one or how I was going to kind of connect the different elevations of the ground. I just let that happen and just went with it. And it was really exciting. I think I got some really cool elevations. And it was a good exercise in figuring out dimension and space in landscapes rather than having kind of these flat, one-dimensional grounds like I have in some of these other videos. This one almost feels like there's a little depression that's kind of encircled by some elevated earth and rocks. To me, that's what it felt like. Little negative painting around those tree trunks there. Negative painting is so effective in watercolor in creating depth and dimension. I mean, you can absolutely negative paint in acrylic and oil and everything, but there's something about negative painting in watercolor that builds depth that it just doesn't have that same effect really in acrylic and watercolor, or acrylic and oil. So what I mean by negative painting, those tree trunks, you saw me take a clean damp brush and just swipe it through the paint, and it just lifted the paint. That's where those tree trunks came from. There's no gouache on them just yet. And then to really make them stand out, I took a darker paint and painted in between them, and it really like pushes those tree trunks forward and sends the darker bit to the back. And it's just such a fun technique. I think that if you are looking for a super easy, super effective watercolor technique to play with, negative painting. And we will do some, more negative painting where I'm giving you actual instruction sometime in the future, I promise. But in the meantime, do go onto YouTube and just search watercolor negative painting. There are some really great artists out there who do it, and you'll find some cool stuff to work on and help you learn that. There's just a hint of gouache on those tree trunks to make sure they stand out well. Once that dries, that gouache won't be anywhere near that bright. I love the way this one turned out. I love that green, first of all. I believe that's Cascade Green by Daniel Smith. It's so beautiful, and the way it fractures, you can see the green and that kind of a ghostly blue glow around it. So gorgeous. A really, really fun color to work with. Here's another one where I really wanted to mess with the ground and see what kind of dimension I could get. I did almost scrap this painting at one point. When I put the yellow in there, it just felt kind of flat and weird, and it felt like it was kind of cutting the plane in half. It was dark green on the right, bright yellow / bright green on the left. It just felt weird. But like I always tell you, if it's already bad, it can't get worse. Might as well just keep going with it and see what you can learn, and maybe get an idea for another painting. So I just went with it, and I ended up actually loving it. And I've noticed that happens quite a lot. I've had that happen to me numerous times throughout this challenge, where I almost gave up on it, but didn't, and then it was one of my favorite ones. So yeah, right here, I think I was about 3 seconds from saying, nope, let's just throw this one out. But once I started putting some dark in the base of those bright green on the left there, the dark really helped right here. It helps anchor it and give it some depth. And then it felt more like there was light glowing through a deep area of the forest rather than just a weird bright green spot on the left. So yeah, once I did that, I decided, okay, I think I might be able to finish this one and like it. I really didn't put a lot of energy into the ground on this one like I do on some of the other ones. I kind of let the little streaky bits that meander around speak for themselves. And to me, it almost feels like the empty white areas could be some water. Like maybe there's a lot of little ponds and puddles all throughout this area. Some of these little scratchy, sticky-uppy bits that I'm doing in there felt like cattails or something to me. So it feels a little swampy, and I definitely dig that. Working with some of these angles on the ground, creating rocks in them though, to again create some different elevations. So right there, those large areas almost in the center that I've wiped the paint out, to me it feels like rocks that are leading down. There's an elevation that's up a little bit, and then step down over those rocks onto an area that's a little bit lower. Like I said, that was kind of my focus throughout these last 3 paintings. And because I've learned so much over the last 30 days, I can't say, well, that challenge is over and it was a lot of work and I'm done with that. I feel like I have to keep going. So I may take a day or two off and then come up with another challenge for myself, one that I won't force you to to watch, but I may come up with a slightly smaller version of the challenge just to keep me going so that I don't just completely stop doing this altogether and then find myself not touching watercolor again for another year. I gotta admit, the back run there where the yellow runs up into the purple, that was a little scary. I thought, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna look okay or if that's gonna be weird. But I just left it and I think it turned out okay. I like this one for the most part. It has its issues, but it's not too bad. Again, working with the ground, trying to create different elevations. This was my last painting of the day, and I knew it was the last painting in the challenge, and to be quite honest, I was kind of rushing through this one a little bit. I still feel like I, saw all the way through to the end and gave it the attention that it needed, but I do know that I was kind of like, okay, let's just do this. Just get it done. And that yellow was a little tough to work with. I mixed, that's Mars yellow. Is that Mars yellow? Yeah, I think so. I mixed it with black tourmaline so that it could get a little more earthy, and I wanted to get that granulating that you see there. But it was also just a super soft color that wasn't very dark. I wasn't getting the depth and dimension out of it that I needed. So I did struggle with that a little bit. But, a couple layers, a couple little dabs of the color, and I think it filled in fairly good. See me adding a pretty heavy amount of it up there. Trying to build out these rocks a little bit without making them look forced and alien to the landscape. Rocks can be really easy to paint, but they can also be really easy to make them feel just kind of plopped on top of a scene. And right here, I think they just feel plopped on top of the scene. And I did struggle with that a little bit in this one. And I think it was really down to the color that I chose, that gray and yellow. Here, now that I'm just putting a little bit more attention, a much smaller brush with a heavy concentration of that dark color, I feel like that helped really press the ground down so that the rocks could feel part of the scene rather than, like invaders to the scene. So anything at all, you guys, that I hear people all the time, can you do a tutorial on this? I always struggle with this. I wish I could do all of those, but there's only so many hours in a day. But if there's something like that you just feel like, I struggle with this so much, make yourself a little challenge and focus on nothing but that for whatever the time frame is. And I guarantee, and I promise you, you will learn and grow and figure it out. And you'll come out the other side a much better artist. You guys, thank you so much for sticking it out with me during this challenge. I know that it's not what you always wanted to see, but I really appreciate it. And I hope to bring all of the things that I have learned over this last month to you guys very, very soon. I will see you soon with actual tutorials.